Welcome to another class of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, a teacher certification program. Please be seated. It's great to see everybody out tonight. We've had an interesting few weeks with all the rain, and we've needed it very badly, of course. But it's great to see everyone here that's here. And for those of you that are watching online also, we thank you for being here tonight or this afternoon. All right, to start out, we are in the character unit of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. This is this is the starting point right here. This is what we need to understand before going further. And it covers quite a bit of ground. Now, briefly, let's take a look first a little bit at the last class. On page 126, that's the page we left off on, and it says, who is a leader? And, of course, it starts out as a little funny. It says, take me to your leader, earthling, and it's kind of funny with the reports in the news today about UFOs and everything, too. But it says, in ancient and modern times, the need for leadership has always been important, because without strong leaders, a society lacks guidance and direction. All through history, certain people were designated to guide and direct others in a particular direction, and these people were called leaders. Now, just a couple sentences down, it says, leaders are simply people who possess qualities and skills, and this is what we're trying to learn. Leaders are simply people who possess qualities and skills that motivate and encourage others towards specific goals. That's teaching, guiding, leading. Let's start out here by turning back to LP6A. Now, as you're turning, I'd like to tell you we'll be focusing on page 127 and forward from there for the most part, but we do reference back to areas that we've already covered, even to the front of the book, and sometimes even to other Peaceful Solution books. So on page LP6A, for those of you with a teacher's manual, the title is I Can Make a Difference. And this is the note to the teacher. Just briefly, it says in this chapter, students will learn that given the right motivation, encouragement, and skills, they have the potential to be leaders. Now, think about that for a minute, because it says students will learn that given the right motivation, encouragement, and skills. Now, I look back, when I read these words, I look back in my teen years and even before, and I think about the things that took place, and, it didn't always fit this guideline right here. So we can only hope for that from this point on, people will be taking hold of this peaceful solution and practicing and teaching this. If we go on down towards the bottom, there's a section down there, there's a paragraph. It starts out by saying, as educators, which we are, we're all training to be certified teachers of the Peaceful Solution. As educators, we often see children who are browbeaten, teased, and taunted by their peers. Now, that makes me think back, to those early years. Think of how much their lives could change if they learned how to take on a leadership role and assert true values to make moral decisions. I'm going to read that once again because it's so very important for us to remember. Think of how much their lives could change if they learned how to take on a leadership role and assert true values to make moral decisions. Now, these are the children that have been browbeaten, teased, and taunted by their peers. I would expect that there are plenty in this room tonight that would qualify right here, that would describe. Now it says, conversely, we also see children who have the ability to lead but are aggressive and violent due to past teachings or influences. Now we've seen that too, and a lot of times the one that's bullied actually becomes the bully. That teaching, that thing they were taught, they take hold of it. But instead of leading, they bully and coerce others. By presenting this lesson, you can simultaneously teach both how to be positive, effective leaders to make a difference in their lives and lives of others. And that's our hope. That's what we desire to do. We desire to make a difference in people's lives in teaching the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. These are things that are just not taught. They're thrown aside in the schools. Oh yeah, there's a few words here and a few words there that are thrown out there and used without much regard. You know, you can walk in any school and they'll be touting the word respect, but do they know what it means? No. We've encountered that many, many times as we go to the schools and we deal with teachers and principals and counselors, educators as a whole. So, but think about yourself for a minute on how your life might have been different if you, as a child, as a teenager, if you apply that second sentence in that last paragraph, think of how much your life could have changed if you had learned how to take on a leadership role and assert true values to make moral decisions. Think of that. I know mine could have been quite different, for sure. So here we are today, though, and we don't have to dwell on that. We can move forward now because we are being taught how to take on a leadership role and assert true values and make moral decisions. So think about that. Keep that in your head as we move along. Well, let's go on to page LP6D. That is the procedure, the lesson plan, and procedure number 4. Procedure number 4 says to tell students that both positive and negative leaders are present within our society. And it says explain that it's important to look beyond personality traits in order to decide if a leader demonstrates positive or negative leadership qualities. And then to have students to read the section found on page 127 entitled The Deciding Factor, and to complete the exercise called Identifying Leadership Styles, found on page 128. And to emphasize that positive leadership is advantageous to all. So as we've learned earlier in the book, we want to look past the personality traits because personality, again, is what a person sees initially when they meet somebody. They see that personality that comes out. You know, we're putting our best foot forward, right? But you can't rely on that. Personality is great, and it keeps things from being so boring. You know, everyone's got a little bit different personality, but yet you have some things that you find that you agree with and are kind of like in that way. But we have to look beyond that and look at the character. That's the key. Character is the key. All right, so just a quick story, the positive and negative leaders. And in the business that I've been in for many years, I remember when I was young and just starting in the business, I saw some things take place that makes me think about this, the positive and the negative leaders. Because most of the places that I worked had some very negative leaders in there that were in control of things. And, you know, I remember that after something would take place, they'd take a brand new person and not give them much training at all, and then send them out there on the car lot to go and sell a car, you know. And most of the time what would occur is that new person would get out there and they would be talking to somebody and, you know, they're scared to death first time out there, you know, and they would let the person go. The person would say, okay, well, I'm just looking, or let me go talk to my wife, whatever the case might be, you know. These are standard answers that people give to salespeople. And they would let the person go. They'd be getting in their car, and he'd be waving at them going down the road. Well, the managers, and it was more than one, this was a very... this was like a procedure that would take place in all these dealerships. They'd call the young new person in there and in front of everybody just rip them apart and say things like, next time you let one of my customers go, you can get in the car and ride with them out the gate, you know, and just bury them up, just tear them down, you know. Well, that's negative. That's dealing through, coercion and force and humiliation. Now, did it work to some degree? Yeah, people they would look around and make sure the manager wasn't looking and then let the person go. But of course, if the manager was looking, then, they wouldn't let him go. And that's how it works. If you use force, that's what takes place. People don't change their hearts and minds. What occurs is they just do what you expect them to do while you're looking at them. Now, the peaceful solution goes deeper than that, and we want to do the teaching and guiding and leading, and we want to do it positively so that it does change the heart and mind. This is on the Peaceful Solution logo. It's to change the hearts and minds, and that's how it's always been. So I'm sure everybody has stories about positive and negative leaders, and this is why it's so important that we just look past the personality, because a lot of these guys had, great personalities, joyful, outgoing, all that stuff. But their character had a lot to be desired. But also remember, they were only doing what they had been taught. We've got to remember that too. We can't make these judgment calls on these people because they haven't been taught yet. Hopefully they'll come and be taught and then want to also be certified as a teacher of the Peaceful Solution. And that's what we have to look forward to. Excuse me. Okay, let's move on to page 127. Now, this is where we'll actually be starting the majority of tonight's lesson. And what we're doing is we're looking at the deciding factor here. Now, the deciding factor, this is what determines or makes clear or points out. It's the deciding thing. It's what determines this. To start out, it says we are literally surrounded by leaders in every activity, organization, town, and nation. There are leaders. Even on a block, a neighborhood, there's leaders, regardless of whether someone is the president of an organization or the coach of a football team. Their leadership style will basically fall into one or two categories, positive or negative. Now, looking back at that, the president of an organization or the coach of a football team, that's quite a difference right there. But I've seen, I'm sure not all are this way, but I've seen coaches of football teams be pretty harsh with their players. Break his legs if you have to, take him down, that type thing. That's not the greatest way to do things. In fact, that's a very negative way to do things. And again, that's the way they've been taught to their style of this coaching. And it's a harsh thing anyway, tackling people and all the physical contact, people getting hurt. Not to go too deep into that, but we're talking about the leadership styles. So their leadership style will fall into one of two categories, positive or negative, and leaders, just like everybody else, can have both great and bad character and personality traits. On the next page, we're going to talk about a few leaders. We'll get into it in just a minute. And you'll have an opportunity to see most of these we've heard of before, and there's some negative ones and positive leaders. But, as we're looking at those, you might consider, too, that even those that we list as negative leaders had some positive character traits in their background somewhere in their life, possibly with dealing with their family or certain things. Possibly they paid their bills on time. And they did certain things, were responsible in certain areas, or diligently, pushing their agenda, whatever it was, they were diligently doing it, So there were some positive things in everybody's life and everybody's character, but what came out the most was the negative on some of these. But keep it in mind. So leaders, just like everyone else, can have both great and bad character and personality traits, and also mentioning the ones that have the positive leadership traits, the positive quality character traits. There are things that, as you learn about their personal lives, well, they had some things going on too that we wouldn't consider to be positive, but more negative. So we've got to keep that in mind, that people need to be taught. Remember that a great personality does not guarantee a great character. You can always tell a positive leader from a negative one by the outcome of their actions, their beliefs, and their ideologies. Negative leaders lack integrity. Now, just to remind you about integrity, let's turn back to page 18 real quick. There's it's kind of like a poster board kind of on that page. On page 18, it says that the end result of internalizing, and that's, making something important to you. When you internalize something, you're making it important. You see some value in it. You see the importance of it. So the end result of internalizing these positive character traits that can be clearly seen in your actions and attitudes. So you see the value of it, you put it to work, your actions are changing, your attitudes are changing, and it's called integrity. Notice the word grit right in the middle of it. Integrity, I-N-T-E-G-R-I-T-Y, grit, and the word grit. And of course, the author of The Peaceful Solution at some point has said that true grit, I believe he said it's mental toughness. People have that true grit. They push forward, And integrity is the quality of being honest and fair and a firm adherence to a code, moral values, a state of being complete and whole. Okay, let's go on back to page 127. So negative leaders lack integrity. They might be selfish, or they might lack compassion and respect for life. When you consider these things, the selfishness, only worried about themselves, whatever their agenda is, they're pushing it forth no matter who they step on. They've got a goal, and they're going to be the top manager, the top leader in the company, or what have you. Or they lack compassion, the desire to end somebody's suffering. There's a lot to be said about compassion, and it's something that it can be described, and if you lack compassion, well, that goes along with the selfishness. If you lack respect for life, that goes along with the selfishness. Me, myself, and I. Respect for life. Some people use the word respect in place of the word honor. They give someone a certain amount of honor, and they call it respect. But that's not what respect is. Respect is showing true care and concern for others and their belongings, just as you would for your own. And that respect for life, holding that life, finding it to be something valuable, and holding life up there, right up there at the top. Respect for life should always be there for all life, whether it be human, whether it be animal, whether it be plant, whatever the case might be. But these negative leaders, they usually consider only their own opinions or those who reflect their opinions. Again, the selfishness, pushing their agenda. They only consider their own opinions or those who reflect their opinions. They don't exemplify to their followers the importance of achieving a positive moral character. Real quick, exemplify is to show or illustrate by example. So they don't show by their example their followers the importance of achieving a positive moral character and the benefit of attaining positive goals. In many instances, negative leadership has resulted in hatred, violence, and death. And that's what we're talking about. As you'll see on the next page, some of these leaders that you'll recognize right away, that is exactly what it resulted in: hatred, violence, and death. Now, positive leaders, on the other hand, just like those that practice the peaceful solution. I know the author of the peaceful solution fits this category right here, a positive leader. These are people of integrity that show the highest amount of integrity. They maintain and demonstrate their positive moral character consistently, all the time, consistent, through their beliefs, their attitudes, and their actions. So just like the author of the peaceful solution, he exemplifies, shows by example, that positive moral character and the benefit of attaining positive goals. And we can always look towards that. That's why these words were written down in this book for us, because this is coming from him and through his experiences, through his attitudes, his beliefs, his actions, and they motivate others to also attain positive moral character and to strive towards excellence in all areas of our lives. In addition to this, positive leadership will result in a ripple effect. Remember a few classes ago, we talked about the ripple effect and how it just goes on and on and on. It starts out, that big plop in the water, you drop the stone in the water, and it's kind of big waves, and then it just moves on until it finally dissipates, if it really does. I could say that you wouldn't be able to see the ripple after a while, but who knows how it keeps carrying on. We have to remember that our actions do cause a ripple effect in everything that we do, whether positive or negative. So, hence the deciding factor between a positive and negative leader is the same thing that decides the quality, either positively, or negatively of all people. Now, one thing I'd like to say here, going back to the top of that paragraph where it starts out with positive leaders, on the other hand, are people of integrity. It says they maintain and demonstrate their positive moral character consistently through their beliefs, attitudes, and actions. They motivate others to also attain positive moral characters. But think about this for just a minute, too. Do you remember reading earlier in the book? Do you remember reading about room to grow? How many remember that? I remember that. And I remember, as someone practicing the peaceful solution and teaching the peaceful solution, that occasionally, I don't do exactly what I wanted to do. And I know that others are the same way. And so we have to remember not only about ourselves needing room to grow, but we also have to remember about others, possibly a supervisor, a manager or something like that. You need to be aware that they need room to grow also. So we have to have the humility, the patience, the respect, the understanding, the compassion. We have to have all these traits working within us to remember that all need. Let's go ahead and turn back there for a minute. It's page 88. Let's turn there for just a minute, because that's so very important. I know people have said, well, my manager did this and my manager did that, and he says we ought to do this, but he's not doing it. But you have to remember, everybody has to have room to grow. It can put a smile on your face instead of a frown. When you have that compassion, when you have the understanding, when you show the respect. Let's go ahead and read it. To start out with, it says, have you ever said, I can't believe I just did that? Well, this isn't what I meant to do. Well, guess what? You're not alone. Everyone will say or do something that is wrong from time to time. Get that? It says everyone. Everyone will say or do something that is wrong from time to time. Yes, even your supervisor, occasionally. Sometimes we get our values mixed up, or we're swayed by negative influences, and then we sometimes, react impulsively and suddenly with emotion. That's the thing. We've got to practice self-control also. We've got to control those emotions. We surprise ourselves, regretting the spur-of-the-moment decision that we've made without a set plan. Is there anybody in here that's never occurred to? Well, I don't see any hands there. I can't put mine up either. So get a smile on your face and remember, while you're practicing having room to grow, remember others are too, and be patient with them. But impulsive means to act on emotions without careful consideration of the consequences of your actions. Keep in mind that every action, even the ones you don't mean to do, starts with a thought. If you decided in advance what is right and wrong, remember, setting our mind in advance, you can avoid acting impulsively by being always aware of the direction of your thoughts. The reason this is so important is because we're talking about leadership. We're talking about guiding, teaching, leading. So when we as supervisors, when we do something that we would rather we would not have done, or said something we would rather we would not have said, it's important that we know that we can look back and see where we have to take action. And then it's also important for everybody that's working as a team to understand that we all have to have that same room to grow. And setting our mind in advance, not to let these things take place. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do sometimes. But influences, as many influences that are out there now today, unbelievable. It can really, influence you, of course, to do something you'd rather not have done. But if your thoughts race in and out of your head so fast that you couldn't tell someone what you were thinking just a minute ago, then it's time to start noticing what your thoughts are. Sometimes keeping a record of your thoughts can help you become more aware of what you're thinking about during the course of the day, simply by writing these things down. This is a great thing for a leader to do. Ask yourself, is this something I want to have in my mind? Will these thoughts help to build and maintain my character, or can they lead to choices that could result in making serious mistakes? Try to be aware of your thoughts, and this will reduce opportunities of acting impulsively. Setting your mind and being prepared in advance to make right choices will help to keep mistakes to a minimum and will keep you from regretful situations. Making mistakes does not mean giving up on maintaining a positive character. On the contrary, making mistakes from time to time will occur as you grow up. With the right attitude, you can use your mistakes to help you mature and maintain a moral character, but only if you learn from them and avoid making the same mistake twice. So you've got to have that humility to learn from your mistakes, and with the right attitude. It says with the right attitude. And remember the right attitude is something that a positive leader displays, that right attitude, that the beliefs, the attitudes, the actions, Okay, let's move along. Let's go on over to page 128. Keeping in mind, we're talking about leadership styles, management styles. Managers are leaders. Leaders are managers. In fact, there's a whole section in the Peaceful Solution well, in the in the business book, anyway, there's a whole section in there that talks about management and leadership. I'm sorry? Workplace manual. Thank you. I don't know how I went blank there for a minute. I apologize. All right, so let's start on page 128. Probably because I meant to bring it up here with me, and I didn't. But using the brief description of some of the accomplishments of the following leaders, identify if they demonstrated positive or negative character traits by placing a P or N, respectively, in the spaces provided. Now, look at the first one there. Adolf Hitler sought to build what he classified as a superior race, and to do so, he had 9 million people murdered. Now, Adolf Hitler did operate by force, coercion, fear. And there's probably some people that, I know in going back and looking at it and reading about it, of course, he was selling people on this too. He gained a lot of people through his influence and inspiring those people. He got people to join out of choice. Not out of force or fear. He got them to join because he talked them into it saying this would be a better way. So, but in general, in history, we can look back and see that Adolf Hitler, just like the book shows right there, I have an N in my book. I don't know what y'all put in yours, but I have an N there. And I would say that he had a negative leadership style. Now, Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos. Probably one of the most famous things that they're remembered for might be that Imelda Marcos had some 3,000 pairs of shoes, or some say even up to 7,500 pairs of shoes. To hear her, she said, well, she only had about 200 pairs of shoes, which is still pretty extravagant. But leaders of the Philippines for 20 years, Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos, it was reported that this couple stole an estimated $5 billion from the country's national fund. Now, when you look even on Wikipedia, you can look and see that it's said, I believe, that it could even be more like 10 billion. There was a lot of hatred and fear and murder and all that took place. And the damage that was done, I don't know, I didn't live there. I can only read about it at this point in time. But the damage that was done was catastrophic. Now, I have an N placed by that also, that they're demonstrating negative character traits in their leadership style. Going on to the next one, Mohandas Gandhi. 1869 through 1948, the Indian nationalist leader, Gandhi used nonviolent means to try to change the treatment of the Indian people. His idea that peace can bring about change attracted worldwide attention to the plight of his people. Now, I have a P next to his name. And I might say that probably some of you might recognize the name a little better as Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma was an honorary title that was actually given to this man in 1914, I think it was, in South Africa, is where he was given this honorary title, and it stuck with him all, I guess, the rest of his life, because I knew it as Mahatma Gandhi. Again, all of these, keeping in mind, these leaders, none of them were actually taught the peaceful solution. The peaceful solution, if they would have had the peaceful solution taught to them, I'm sure their lives would have been quite different too. And the lives of those that followed them, and the lives of victims and so forth. Now, the next one is talking about a gang. Chile was the leader of the Bloods. A gang occupying the Lower East Side, Chile would routinely order his followers to beat down anyone found out at night if they wanted to stay in the gang. Now, anyone found out at night, meaning, walking around that wasn't in the gang, I guess, but if they wanted to stay in the gang, he would order them to beat down that person that was found walking around. And that's very negative. So he used, fear and coercion, force to get this done. I have an N by his name. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, Martin Luther King Jr., getting a little closer here to some of our later generation. I know I was actually alive when Martin Luther King Jr. was around. He was a civil rights leader. He encouraged the use of nonviolent actions to protest discrimination. And King's opposition to segregation and racial discrimination brought worldwide attention to the plight of black Americans. He was awarded the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize for Peace, Nobel Prize for Peace. I have a P next to his name. He displayed a lot of positive character traits in his leadership style. There were some negatives in there too, which he wasn't taught the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. So we know there were some negatives in there. And you could go read about his life and see some things, But I have a P next to his name because he did try, for the most part, to not do it through violence, like the riots and everything that are taking place. Even as we see around us today, there's still riots taking place all across America and all across the world because of discrimination or the thought of discrimination, whichever the case might be. I'm not trying to put forth any opinion here. I'm just trying to give the facts as I know them. The next one would be Papadoc Duvalier. Papadoc. Some of us have heard of him. Self-elected leader of Haiti between 1957 and 1971. It was reported that he created a task force to kill and brutalize anyone who opposed him. Now, if you've been around for a while, you've heard of this taking place in other countries too, not just in Haiti. But in many countries, we can hear of attacks, assassinations, poisonings, brutalizing anyone who opposes a leader that leads with negative character traits and has a negative leadership style. Anyway, he stole millions of dollars from his country while his people died of starvation and disease. He promoted only those who supported him and family members to offices within the government. And during his reign, 30,000 Haitians died because of his rule. And we're told here, just a little quiz there at the bottom, choose one of the leaders whose character traits you identify as positive. Of course, I chose Mohandas Gandhi. And I had a P next to his name, and he was definitely generous, patient, steadfast, determined. We could go on. Then one of the leaders whose character traits that I identified as negative, which would be Adolf Hitler. Of course, selfish, violent, hateful, lacking compassion, lacking respect, lacking understanding. So what did all these negative leaders lack? They were selfish, and they lacked compassion and respect. Just reminding us, back on page 127, middle of the page in the second paragraph, it says that they may be selfish. These negative leaders lack integrity. They might be selfish or lack compassion and respect for life. And they only consider their own opinions or those who reflect their opinions, which they would keep by their side as part of their entourage or part of their group. So think back again now. Think back again when we were talking about back on page LP6A, the title page. On LP6A, right here, going back to that paragraph at the bottom. Now, it can make a little more sense now here too. It says, as educators, we often see children who are browbeaten, teased, and taunted by their peers. I wonder if some of these men that we put down as having negative leadership styles and negative character traits in their leadership styles, I wonder if this would describe them in their youth, if they were teased and taunted by their peers. So we could think of how much their lives could change if they learned how to take on a leadership role and assert true values and make positive, moral decisions instead of the immoral decisions. Think about that. Think about how the lives could change. Think about what we could do to help at this point, to help people change their lives. Think about the children around. Excuse me. Think about what the children see in our actions from day to day. And think about what type of example we are. Our beliefs, our attitudes, our actions. What type of attitude do we have when we're going around from day to day interacting with others in the workplace, with our supervisors, and especially, again, the children. When the children see us, when the teens and the children see us, the adults, and see how we conduct ourselves with one another. Are we following these guidelines? Do we know that even though we might not have the title supervisor, that we are actually teachers? We're teachers in the things that we do each and every day. We're teachers around the people that we're around. They're learning from us. They're seeing the things that we do. We're learning from them. There's positive and negative influences around us each and every day. Can we keep that in mind and remember these words, that thinking back how if someone wasn't taunted and someone wasn't bullied, and how if they had positive influences around them all day long, think of how their lives could have changed. Think of how our lives could have changed, you know? So that brings us to the next page, page 129, if you would turn there. I want to say there's a teacher in you. The title of this is There is a Leader in You. And a leader is a teacher. But of course, not everyone will become a government, community, or religious leader, but in every person's life, there will be opportunities to lead. Have you ever considered that your teacher is a leader? If your parents supervise others or are managers on their jobs, then they too are leaders. And you might also be called upon to be a leader. How many of you in your day-to-day grind, your day-to-day workplace have been asked to go show someone how to do something? You know, hey, can you go show the new man how to do this? Or so several of you have, right? Guess what? Guess what you were? You were a leader. You were a teacher right there on that spot. Now, did you lead with the positive character traits, or did you lead with the negative character traits? What was your leadership style? Were you yelling at the person, or were you, kindly telling them, hey, come on, do it this way. Let me show you how, and here, I'll help you if you need help, right? Think about it. Think about what we do each and every day. I know, I see many of you, and I see great things taking place. And I know the supervisors are doing their best to do the right thing and to lead with compassion and understanding and respect, and all throughout the different work areas that I see in this community. So regardless of how young or old you are, you can learn how to lead and value being a positive leader. Going back to page 6, let's talk about that word value for a minute. Way back there at the front. We've been to this page many, many times, but let's talk about it again. Values are what you believe in or feel strongly about, and they also play a key role in developing your character. The sum total of everything you value becomes your value system. So values are what you believe in or feel strongly about. Well, if you value being a positive leader and you feel strongly about doing it in a way that you yourself would appreciate, even if it's showing someone how to cut a log, or if it's showing someone how to wash a car, or if it's showing someone how to, cut hair, whatever the case might be. If you value that thing that you do and you feel strongly about what you believe in, and you feel strongly about showing the other person so they can understand and have joy in what they do, then you're going to do this right. Values, you got to value it. You got to want it. Values aren't like a standard thing that you can just say, okay, this is valuable, this is valuable, this is valuable, and this is valuable. It doesn't work that way. Some people value a pocket full of money or a handful of money. Some people value diamonds. Some people value having food to eat. Some people value a roof over their head. Some people value an old ragged tie that was given to them by their father that, died many years ago or something. Something that was given to them that they cherish and have passed down through the generations or something, Some people value that more than they do even the handful of money. So it's what you value, and we should be valuing these great moral character traits that we can put to work in our life, and even in a leadership role. Okay, Let's go back to page 129. There's a leader in us, in you. Okay, so sooner or later, everyone is asked to lead in one way or another, and you might be asked to lead a group project, or you might be chosen as captain of a team, so you've got to be prepared. One of the keys to learning how to lead is to maintain your positive character. You might suddenly find yourself in a situation where everyone else is doing the wrong thing. I think everybody's been in that situation before. You know, you're around and everyone's wanting to do the wrong thing. We might have even been enticed to do the wrong thing also because of peer pressure. We might have valued that the peer acceptance more than we valued positive character, not being taught the peaceful solution, not being taught how to set our mind in advance. You know, all these things work together. They're synergistic. We have to take it step by step and practice. So you might suddenly find yourself in a situation where everyone else is doing the wrong thing, but knowing how to be a positive leader can help you get yourself and others out of a bad situation. Wouldn't it have been great to see some positive leadership in the news? You know, we see the riots and things taking place, the crowd just going crazy. And this takes place. You find yourself in a situation where everyone else is doing the wrong thing, and you get caught up in it, and you're part of it. There's probably a lot of the people that were involved in these riots and that would have rather not been there. And especially when looking back on it and seeing that someone got killed, or they look back and see that people in their community lost their businesses, or so forth. Or they got, they got seen on the internet and they picked them out and now they're hunting them down to prosecute them, So knowing how to be a positive leader can get you and yourself, yourself and others out of a bad situation. And sometimes making a difference means taking the initiative and having the courage to stand up for what's right. That's the tough thing right there, standing up for what's right in a group of people that's totally against doing what's right. And you're going to stand up and tell them, we really shouldn't be doing this. That's some tough action. But guess what? It takes courage. It takes courage. And courage is a positive character trait that you can put forth in your life, and you can stand up and do what's right. You never know when, through your positive leadership, you might encourage someone else to make the right choice. The lack of positive leadership is why we're experiencing these problems today. Coronavirus, the riots, the laziness. I heard that it's very hard to hire people right now for a job. That the workforce has never been this, there's never been this many jobs available before and this few people to take the jobs, from what I understand. And, some people have said, why should I go out there and work for $10 an hour when I can sit right here and get my unemployment check and get my stimulus check, and I don't have to go do anything and have more money than if I was out there working for $10 an hour, or possibly even 12 or 15. I know some of the, I think one of the teachers mentioned it recently that one of the fast food places, McDonald's, I think it was, where they're paying $50 just to have you come in and fill out an application. If you'll just come in and fill out the application, they'll give you $50. So that's just amazing that it's gotten to that point. I never thought I would see something quite like that. Okay, so true leaders rise to the occasion. And the rising to the occasion is what we're talking about here on this page, where sooner or later everyone is asked to lead in one way or another, and it could occur when you least expect it. So you've got to be prepared. You're prepared through practicing the peaceful solution in your life. Then it will come. It'll be easier to jump in there and do the right thing if you've been doing the right thing all along anyway. Think about that for a minute. If you're practicing doing the right thing, then when the pressure's on, when the push is on, when you're called upon to be a leader, when you're called upon to show somebody how to do something the proper way, when you're called upon to teach a class, then you'll be prepared to do that very thing if you've been practicing. On the other hand, if you've been practicing the other way, the wrong way, then when you're asked to do something, it's liable not to go so well. Let's go ahead and turn over to page 130. Now, a potential leader won't mind being trained. So obviously, everyone in here is a potential leader tonight, right? And everyone out here watching on the internet, also, you are potential leaders because you don't mind being trained. You're out there tonight actually watching this and making notes. I know a lot of you are out there making comments on the classes. But I've heard before this thing about a born leader. It says, not a born leader? Well, join the crowd. Most people aren't either. Yeah, I've never known anyone to be, well, I can't say that I haven't actually known anyone that was born to be a leader. I think we're all born to be leaders in certain areas. And but I don't think anyone was born and that day they came out telling everybody, well, let's go and do this. It's the right way to do it. I mean, if you think about it, that's what it would be to be a born leader, possibly. But join the crowd. Most people aren't either. But don't let that discourage you from learning how to lead. I do want to say that, on that for a minute, when we go back and in the Peaceful Solution later on in some of the future units too, we'll be talking about how, and also in the book so far, we'll be talking about how our genes do make us, and how our genes and our environment and how our parents' training and what they went through and our grandparents and so forth, all that stuff does come down to us. And if it's very possible that if our family, if we had a lot of leaders in there, positive leaders, then it's possible that we also could take hold of that and be a positive leader too, excuse me. So it shouldn't discourage you to learn how to lead, from learning how to lead, not being born a leader. There's many things we are born not knowing how to do, such as reading, writing, even riding a bike. These things are skills. They've got to be learned, and some are difficult at first. I'm sure some of the young men up here could attest to that. When not long ago, some of the young men are at an age they really didn't know how to read, but possibly a few words they could recognize. And once they learned how to read, oh boy, here it is. They want to read everything, right? So that's one of the things, though, the reading and the riding of a bike and so forth. It's great when you learn how to do it, and there's a sense of accomplishment. But leading others requires character, which we can learn, positive character, personality, and skills. Yes, personality too, it's part of it, And then skills, being trained how to do things, trained how to talk to people, trained how to do this in this situation and this in this situation. Or, for an electrician, they need to be trained so they know what wire to use with this particular amperage, or what to do if something is a certain voltage, and so forth and so on. Everyone has skills that they learn. Well, you can learn the skills relevant to leadership in the same way you learned all your other skills. You practice, practice, practice. If you're a mechanic, you didn't go out there and start turning wrenches and you were just the best mechanic on the face of the earth overnight. You had to start practicing it. You turned a few wrenches and you learned that, it's easier if I use this wrench. It's easier if I use this screwdriver. I could use a shorter one here or a longer one here. And then you had your toolbox where, according to whatever situation you were involved in, you could reach in and grab the proper tool from the experience that you had and the skills that you had developed in doing that thing. And so it is with positive character and being a positive leader. You've got to have a toolbox, and that toolbox is what we're giving you. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program is giving you the toolbox, or the tools to put in your toolbox. And you can learn which one of those tools to reach in and grab and use in every situation that you encounter each and every day. And it's going to depend upon what we've already read about tonight, the values. It's going to be depend upon your attitude, your beliefs, your actions, all these things. So here's a few simple steps to keep in mind. You want to set your mind in advance that you can be a positive leader. You also want to, remember, setting your mind in advance. That's having the self-control. You're putting the self-control to work, and you're saying to yourself, okay, if this occurs, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do what I did last time. I'm going to do it right this time. So set your mind in advance for what might come your way. Value how learning to lead can help you maintain a positive character. So just like the person that values the fistful of money, you can value how learning to lead can help you maintain a positive character also. That value can be up there even above that money or that car or that diamond or that, whatever it is that a person finds valuable in their mind. And then also, you got to remember to don't quit trying. Remember when we went back to page, I think it was 88, room to grow? You got to remember, you got to have room to grow. And remember to give other people room to grow also. You got to remember that. You could quit trying one way or the other. You could quit trying and say, forget that guy, man. He's, Or you can don't quit trying to also understand that person and help them to achieve positive character and a positive leadership style. You help each other. So if you've experienced being in a leadership position, for instance, being the class leader, club president, etc., then you are well aware of how much responsibility it takes to be a leader. Remember, there are both positive and negative leaders. What category does your leadership style fall into? Think about that. Remember, there's a leader in all of us. What category does your leadership fall into? If you're showing someone how to wash a dish, what category does your leadership style fall into? Do you motivate others to apply their positive character traits to achieve their goals? Do you treat those who look to you for guidance with respect and compassion? Think carefully about these questions, because being a positive leader includes all of these and much more. I want to go back here. Do you motivate others to apply their positive character traits to achieve their goals? And do you treat those who look to you for guidance with respect and compassion? That's something that we all need to do with each other, whether it's like a supervisor or whether it's a subordinate. Whatever the case might be, because to have true respect and compassion, you've also got to have that humility. You've also got to have self-control. You have to have respect. You have to show respect to everyone. And that comes with that practice. You practice it, so that it comes out naturally, originally. So think carefully about these questions, because being a positive leader includes all of these and more. And that's what the Synergistic Peaceful Solution Character Education Program is all about. It all works together. Not one thing just stands on its own, okay? Let's remember that, and let's all work together, and let's all be working together to be positive leaders, okay? And it's great that you've been here tonight. The next class will take place on, let's see, the 5th, May 5th? Yeah, May 5th at 5:30. And everybody's invited, those of you out there on the internet as well as those that are here in the conference room here tonight. We thank you for coming. Have a great night.